I think that with some preliminary understanding of the distinction between structure and hyperstructure, you can better appreciate why most typology as it is practiced misses the point and misses the mark, and actually doesn't achieve what it purports to achieve, because it only focuses on hyperstructure and not on structure. Okay? Now, in order, you see that I'm braving the elements today, in order to get a better notion of this difference between structure and hyperstructure, we need to look at unconscious fantasy and at how this unconscious fantasy is played out in reality. Right? Now, we've been looking at unconscious fantasy for a while now in our work. And for those of you that are still following me, well, I dare believe that you're going to continue following me, because I'm going to be giving you more concrete examples, right? So consider that when we observe someone's behavior, when we observe someone's words, what people say, how people cope with reality, what they project, their opinions, even their interests, that is primarily a question of hyperstructure. And it's essentially if you like, the series of psychic mechanisms that allow the person's structure to survive in the world. It's like we cannot survive without having a hyperstructure that is dynamic and allows us to operate in the world in relative harmony with a structure that is closer to who we are, but that is itself far less dynamic. Okay? It changes, but very slowly. So it's not exactly adaptive in the way that we would understand adaptation. And the vast majority of the time when you're talking to people or to typologists and they tell you that you're this or that type, what they are typing is not your structure, but your hyperstructure. They're typing what you are during a particular phase of your life, dynamically, to cope with the world in harmony, in relative harmony with a structure that is not really touched. Okay? Now, if you want to, if you want to know more, and I'm going to be using a concrete example of the FE versus FI distinction to illustrate. So stick around if you want me to explore more. I just want to mention that I have a Patreon page where you can support me. It's the first link below right there. If you join me on Patreon, well, first of all, you help me massively because I could not do this work without you. And so I'd be very grateful if you contributed. It's only a few euros or dollars a month or a year. You have both options, and in return you get cool perks like access to a whole library of exclusive content and access to our Discord server. So come hang out with us. And again, these are not easy times, so I'm really grateful for your support. Now let's take the example of FE versus FI. I like to use the example of this man who was photographed at a Nazi gathering during the Third Reich in Germany, and he refused to perform the Nazi salute. And there are lots of photographs, famous photographs, of everyone around him doing the Nazi salute, but he won't Sieg Heil. He just won't do it. And I've seen people celebrate this as evidence of the purity of the FI function. It's like he believes in his own values. He rejects the values of the mass that are the values of Nazism, and so he's FI, and that's the beauty of FI. Look at this case. That's assessing this person's type on the basis of one element showing some access to their hyperstructure, not to their structure. And it's easy to see. It's easy to see because when you think about it for a moment, even for just a moment, you realize he could have done this from an FI point of view, but he could also have done this from an FE point of view. You know, he could have done this from the point of view of the singularity of his value system, or from the point of view of the universality of his value system, where he considers that the people around him are led astray right? They're led astray. They're not actually, they've been manipulated into losing sight of this universal value, which you might call whatever you want to call it. Whereas in the FI case, the reference would not be to a universal value, the sense would not be given to a universal value, but it would be given to a singularly held value. So emotional mirroring that needs to be corrected, or emotional containment that needs to be celebrated in this case. So two completely different structures, one more of an FI structure, the other one more of an FE structure, could have the exact same symptom in the hyperstructure. Okay? And so it's not true that this person's FI, it's also not true this person's FE. The reality is we don't know, because we don't know what their unconscious is like. We don't know what their fantasy world is like. We don't know what it is that gives them in life the desire to engage with life, that gives them motivation, that sets their life in motion. Their fantasy world is what gives you the structure. Okay? And that's why you need to access the fantasy world. Just in the same case that for this particular man who refused to perform the Nazi salute, without exploring these themes, these issues, these aspects of his personality, you will never actually know his type. So hopefully that was an instructive example, guys. Don't forget about my two books about the INFJ, the Ecstatic Soul and the Infinite Soul. These two books are essential for an understanding of the INFJ's inner world, that's the Ecstatic Soul, and the INFJ's outer world, how to find meaning, purpose, and value in external reality, which is the Infinite Soul, the sequel. These two books are essential readings if you want a deep understanding of this type. And just wait for the upcoming book on NI, guys. It's going to be really good. Thank you. See you soon.